Okay, thank you so much for being here today. So yeah, as the title says, I'm going to be talking about lived experience and our value beyond our expertise. So that means I want to bring out a bit of a challenge in what we're talking about. So we've over the last 2 days, we've understood that lived experience engagement is important and including us in decision-making processes is important. But what about taking it one step further? What about making it a paid profession? What about the monetary value that comes with the expertise that we share? So we're going to go through this today. Oh. Open the what? Oh, sorry. Okay, so shifting mindsets, right, to our monetary value. So in the past, we were excluded from opportunities, right? We were really considered as volunteers. We still are, but for the most part, there's been a bit of a shift where we've been included as service providers. So we offer our recommendations, we get involved in engagement sessions, and more often than not, we're not really getting paid for that. We're expected to attend events, like, let's say, well, not this event, but other events where accommodation and travel expenses are not covered for. Our fees, our expertise is not covered for. And that really goes against everything we're standing for, because we're trying to change lives. We're trying to make changes in policies that affect us directly as people with lived experience. And we really want to see the change in stakeholders seeing that actually we need to move forward and not go backwards, because now we've reached a point where we're engaging, we're really involved, but then we're still volunteers. And we need to make that distinction. Why are we still volunteers? We're people with expertise based on our own experiences. We're sharing knowledge, we're sharing information that we gained through navigating systems during our trial and error periods, finding medication, finding the right psychiatrists and psychologists, and we have just a unique perspective that we can bring to the table. So now that we're being included in that, should we be doing it for free? Should it be just a free service? And I can see my colleagues is like, no, it shouldn't be. And rightfully so. We are experts, just in a different capacity. Okay, so despite the global emphasis on the importance of the voices and perspectives of people with lived experiences, we need to be recognized by the world as service providers. We need to be recognized and not undervalued. Because what happens just in normal everyday life, if you're not paid for your job, will you go to your job? Will you do your work? Will you do it to the best of your ability? Probably not. Why? Because compensation, remuneration gives value. And there's no difference with us. Oh gosh. What does open it mean? Oh, okay. What is open it? Thank you. Okay, so if we're looking at legislation that currently exists, we've got the International Covenant for Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, which says in Article 7 that equal remuneration for the work of equal value without distinction, so without discriminating. So don't give us half of what another expert that is sitting at the same table is getting. It should be the same. Because what we offer may not be, we don't all offer the same information, but our information is just as valuable to the outcome of what the project may be or the engagement session. So we've also got the World Health Organization, the mental health report that was released this year, which again says, yes, let's include people with lived experience. Let's get them involved. They're an integral part of the process. And again, we're sitting with the situation, okay, so what about remuneration? People still live. So in the previous session before mine, one of the lived experience speakers said she wears so many hats. She's a mom, she's a sister, she does mental health advocacy, and she's a peer support. So if she's not going to get paid, how does she survive at home? How do you make a living? So I think we need to be looking at it from that perspective. Then the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Psychosocial Disability reiterates the rights of persons with disabilities have been identified as milestone in human rights protection and offering people with psychosocial disabilities the opportunity to hold their countries accountable or their governments accountable. So we've got the law is there. So as people with lived experience, we shouldn't be shy to ask for, I don't want to say money and sound rude, but ask for it because we should be valued. And this goes basically directly back to what Charlene, if you guys did hear Charlene Sinkel's presentation yesterday, that we need to be treated with respect and dignity, and we need to be treated equally. And this goes without saying for us as well. So what we did at the Global Mental Health Peer Network, we thought, okay, so we were struggling a little bit with funding and finding resources to really sustain our organization. We're growing really fast and we're making a really big impact in the world, but then we're still having trouble finding the funding sources, finding finances to help us support and get more people on board to continue this momentum we've now gained. And at first we thought maybe it's just us and maybe it's only us that's experiencing this. So we decided we're going to do a survey or 2 surveys, and we collected some data, and we approached our own lived experience members from our network as well as outside of the network, and then also peer-led organizations, and asked the same questions, got information from them. And guess what? The whole world is experiencing this, right? It wasn't just us. So this needs to be spoken of. So I've got the challenge of bringing it forward and speaking to all of you about it. But this is such an important point to make and to reiterate. So the overview of the report is to inform funders and relevant stakeholders of the experience faced by lived experience and or peer-led organizations in seeking and securing funding towards their work, and B, to advise them on how they could better support lived experience initiatives. So in spite of the growing inclusion of lived experience into engagement and high-level meetings, the concern now moves on to the element of non-remuneration. I'm going to keep it quiet just to sink in. Let it sink in. The objective of sharing the insights in this report is not only to encourage more support for lived experience and peer-led organizations, but to start a conversation. We can't go further than this if we don't start the basic conversation, just getting the word out there and starting a momentum. Our movement, lived experience movement, started in that way as well, by starting a conversation. So this should take the same approach. So I wanted to look at an example. So the process of decision making. Right? So we look at decision-making. We now know through the human rights instruments that we should be included. Lived experience is required by law, right, to be involved. Okay, so we're not saying we're not being acknowledged. We're just saying, okay, that's the first step. We're now being included. So what then? Now we look at it and we go, okay, how does that pertain to mental health and the issues that directly affect us as people with lived experience? Who do we make accountable? Who do we go to? So that would then be the next step. The fact is that the experiential value is hardly ever met with the monetary value. And that's just inequality, and that's unfair processes, and it's really undermining. And in the previous presentations, the common theme that kept coming up during the presentations is empowerment. And empowerment is also done through paying people for their value. Equal pay for equal work. So the question we've put here is, how did you feel the first time you received payment for your lived experience expertise? So we asked this to our members, and you'll see we've got a few. We've put some African countries. There's actually some members here that participated. And you'll see, being paid fostered my empowerment, autonomy. Look at the words that are coming out from the screen. Right? On the your right-hand side, it's about thank you for listening to me and reminding me that I'm not alone. So you approaching different people, high-level personnel, when you're discussing topics, that made that person feel good, that made that person feel listened to. Indonesia, my intention is to help people, but who's helping him? Who's helping her, right? With the extra, taking that step forward. I thought this was just something nice to add in to show the empowerment that comes with receiving compensation for your work done. Okay, so the key strategic elements to foster lived experience engagement. So as I said, remuneration must be thought of in the project strategy phase. So for example, the peer network is often approached by, say, research companies who are really trying their utmost to focus on, say, anxiety and depression, and they really want to work on research, and they're involving us. What we're asking is, involve us from the start all the way through, and when you're thinking about that initial phase, and you're thinking about the logistics, and you're thinking about the budget, include us already there before that proposal goes in. That way, we're ensuring that we're being accounted for and included at that point already. So then there can't be, like you won't receive, actually we don't have budget for lived experience. This will change it. So we're giving a suggestion of maybe how to approach it. Planning must make provision for sufficient resources, logistical support, and an allocation of reasonable funds towards financial compensation for lived experience representatives and align with the idea and the concept of equal pay for equal work. And also by paying, so we talk a lot in the lived experience world about meaningful and authentic engagement. So that's what stakeholders can do for us to make our participation meaningful and authentic. And by doing this, by giving us equal pay for what we do, for the unique perspectives we give as experts by experience, we will get there. We will feel empowered, we will feel like we're making a difference. And at the end of the day, lived experience is about being agents of change. So if we're not going to say it, who is, right? So for me, the three main concepts is empowerment, fairness, and equality. So what do we do next? It's time now to rethink how we perceive persons with lived experience and what role we play in transforming the world's view on mental health care and systems. And there's a saying that a colleague of mine in South Africa always uses: collaboration over competition. Thank you.